published about a week and a half ago called Guidelines for Teaching Yoga to Women with Breast Cancer-Related Lymphedema, an Evidence-Based Approach. And I thought that this was something that was quite important, and I wanted to share it with all of you. It's not often, or actually this may be the first time, that the yoga therapeutic and research community has actually published a paper. Hold on one second, I have somebody here, but I'm gonna come back. Just 1 second. Hi, Courtney. I'm doing a Facebook Live. You can say hello to everybody, but I'm just in the middle of it, so come in, and I'll be done in a second. Hi guys, this is Courtney, right, who is a colleague of mine. You can just close the door. So, basically, this is one of the first times that a journal has actually published best practice for a particular medical issue that the public at large, specifically yoga therapists, can consider. And this is going to be a very important way forward, because if we want to bring yoga therapy into the medical world, we can't just go in with intuitive ways of thinking. We actually have to have a consensus amongst us about what's really important. So this particular article was looking at lymphedema for people with breast cancer. Now, why would they have that? You can sit down, Courtney. Don't worry, you don't have to stand there like that. So why would individuals have lymphedema if they've had breast cancer? So let me just give you some stats, first of all, about breast cancer. These are quite sobering. I'm sorry about it, but I think it's important to understand, and also to have a sense that even though this might sound quite niche, lymphedema and breast cancer, it's probably not. So in the UK, 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer. Of those who need to have surgery, almost half of those will experience lymphedema. Now, why will they experience lymphedema? When you remove the breast, often you will remove some of the lymph nodes here. Now, why would we do that? Well, first of all, often when you have breast cancer, it spreads to that region. So if you're going to have to remove something, you're going to remove that tissue as well. The other thing is that the lymph nodes actually allow the spread of cells. So if you have cancer within your breasts and you don't remove the lymph nodes, but it's quite close to the lymph nodes, there is a risk actually that it could spread there and then move to other parts of the body. If that happens, we will enter a state of metastasis, and the long-term prognosis of that is very bad. So as a result, lymph nodes are often removed. Now, what happens as a result? Well, what lymph nodes do is they take lymph, right? I hope you know what lymph is. If not, Google it, because I don't have time to discuss it here. But lymph nodes take the lymph and they clear it of all of its debris, of infectious agents, of byproducts that come from cells. And then that lymph moves into the venous return part of the circulatory system, and then moves all the way into the kidneys to the renal system, where we release it through a process of urination. Now, if you have the lymph nodes removed, that's not going to happen. So 2 possible things may occur. 1, you may have lots of infections, which is not nice, and you're at risk for them, and you have to be more conscious. And number 2, you may have a lot of swelling, particularly around the arms. And it's known for women who have had their lymph nodes removed as a result of a mastectomy that can be incredibly painful. So considering what yoga might be able to do is important. So let me just list some obvious things, and then we'll get on to the paper. First of all, yoga can really help if you've had to have breast tissue or the whole breast removed, because it's a very, very psychologically difficult thing to go through. And a lot of people associate their sense of femininity with their breasts, although we're so much more than that as women. And so having that removed can be incredibly psychologically unnerving, and just having any kind of surgery is. Yoga is known to lift mood, so it should be beneficial. But there are some other things that it can offer that are very particular and based on physiology. And these are really what the recommendations are around. So for example, in this paper, they talk about the fact that you should be working with individuals with lymphedema who have had lymph nodes removed around the armpit area, the axil area, through slow inhale and slow exhale. Why is that? Because actually through the process of inhale and exhale, you create different kinds of pressure gradients, both around the heart in the lungs. And those gradients act to both pull the lymph off and also allow it to be pushed back down so that movement can be more emphatic and strong. So they say that there should be long inhale, a pause, followed by long exhalation. And by the way, that's also going to help with psychological health. Another thing that they suggest is that the arms are lifted up. And that makes sense because gravity is going to be able to allow the lymph to flow more easily to the lymph nodes, to any that are still existing, so that they can more aptly process the lymph and move it into the venous return area of the system. Another thing is, it's really going to be quite difficult if women have high levels of lymphedema in the arms to have them outstretched and held like in a warrior two position, because there's already going to be a lot of tension and pain and a lot of actually increase in body weight. So that should not be done. Probably more of inhaling, lifting up, exhaling, coming down, which actually will also support lymphatic flow. And it will start to strengthen the deltoid muscles if you keep doing that, which is important because also women tend to lift up their arms less due to pain. And so those areas can weaken, and that actually makes the situation worse. The other thing that the article talks about, which is really important, is that if you are unwell, you don't teach the class, because there is an increased likelihood of infection, as I mentioned. And if somebody has an infection and less lymph nodes, it's more serious. And that the mats and everything in the room should be super clean. Of course, I hope you would do that anyway, but taking the care around this particular group is more important. So whether you yourself have lymphedema as a woman and you want to start yoga and you want to know what are some of the best practices, this is something to consider. Although I really hope you go to a class, that's important, and not do it on your own. And if you are a yoga teacher or a yoga therapist, these are some of the things that you should consider. And for those of you working with other conditions, I think consider also writing a research paper with a group of your colleagues, because if we can start to collate this, we have a better way of addressing the medical community. I'm not suggesting we streamline everything. Of course, all of us have our own approaches, but having some guidance is really important. So thank you very much. Have a lovely day. Namaste. How do I turn this off?